Okay, we'll start with this. Another segment of the Ring IQ talent search here towards the year's end, the end of 2022 going into 2023. A young fighter hails from Argentina has caught my attention.
A young unbeaten fighter that was in action this past weekend. A young unbeaten fighter that came off a 2-year hiatus from the sport, nearly 2 years.
A fighter that goes by the name Nazarena Romero.
El Capricho.
Nazarena Romero campaigns at 122 pounds. That's where Mayerling Rivas reigns as WBA champion. Yamileth Mercado reigns as WBC champion. Sigeling Lafarve reigns as WBO champion. And Shernick Johnson reigns as IBF champion. Nazarena Romero, an unbeaten up-and-comer that shows a lot of promise. An unbeaten up-and-comer like an Ellie Scottney. That pocket between 118 and 126 pounds, that pocket between bantamweight, super bantamweight, and featherweight is fast becoming one of the most talent-rich pockets in the entire sport. Nazarena Romero is a prime example of that. Here you have an aggressive puncher, a spiteful one. You know, Argentina has a long history of producing some...
Nazarena is quite the physical specimen.
Argentina has a long history of producing some really strong fighters that take a great punch and give a better one. Nazarena Romero is a prime example of that, sporting a professional record of 11 wins, no losses, no draws, 5 knockouts.
Before this past weekend, Nazarena last saw action in December of 2020, the year the pandemic hit, and she sat out all of last year and most of this year, but she has returned to action towards year's end.
I believe the reason for the hiatus was that young Nazarena was with child, and she's only 28 years old, so she still has plenty of good years left.
This is an aggressive, mid-range to inside fighter, a body puncher, quite an accomplished body puncher. She characteristically goes there.
You often hear it said that nobody, and I mean nobody, likes it to the body, that you don't recover from body punches as easily as you do head punches. And that's a part of what makes Nazarena Romero such a dangerous fighter, that she characteristically goes to the body. When she's not trying to get off that big looping right,
she's drilling the girl opposite the ring's midsection. Those left hooks, my goodness.
Between the looping right and left hooks to the body, left hooks upstairs also, Nazarena Romero shows good variety. If she can't land to the head, she'll go to the body. This fighter is more offensively minded than defensively minded. She really is more offense than defense, but she has capable firepower. Think Gabriela Alani. She's that kind of fighter, that kind of puncher, and as stated, Argentina has a long history of producing these kinds of fighters, these kinds of punchers, these kinds of physical specimens. Yeah, she's a motherfucker.
Bad motherfucker.
Before this past weekend, she was last in action against Cardoza in late 2020, the year the pandemic hit. She finished that fight by way of a second-round TKO stoppage. She left with a TKO stoppage and scored one this past weekend.
Another knockout.
A vicious one off a monstrous overhand right against seasoned journeywoman Paola Ibarra.
Put her down.
Girl's a fucking monster.
Put her down fucking hard.
I like that fucking shit. It's always interesting to have a devastating puncher at a given weight, in a given weight class, in a given division.
Y esa es la historia de Nazarena Romero.
Yesterday's contest was billed as an 8-rounder for the WBA's Fedelatin title, vacant Fedelatin title. What this essentially means is that Nazarena Romero is vying for a WBA title shot. Current reigning champion at 122 pounds by way of the WBA is Mayerling Rivas
of Venezuela, and she may have a serious fucking problem on her hands.
She might. Mayerling Rivas is a devastating puncher in her own right, an experienced one.
Yeah, she successfully defended her title earlier this year, part of a Matchroom show. Mayerling Rivas is a Matchroom fighter, a reigning champion, and up until recently, at least for my money, the apex predator at this weight. But with a fighter a puncher like this, climbing up those ranks, targeting an alphabet title.
Targeting her alphabet title.
Better get your shit together. Nazarena Romero is coming.
She was away for a while, but now she's back, and she's just as devastating as she was when we last saw her.
One to watch out for in the coming year, 2023.
In men's welterweight news, apparently Keith Thurman wanted $10 million to fight Jaron Boots Ennis, says Boots' father, trainer, Bozy.
I know that his father is certainly going to be too close to the action, too close to the story, but
I actually believe him because this is what I've always thought about the quasi-retired Keith Thurman and why in the last two going on 3 years, he's only fought once.
Just once.
From the time that he lost to Manny Pacquiao in what was, I believe, the second quarter of 2019. Since then, the man has only fought once.
Mario Barrios' fight from earlier this year.
As if decisioning Mario Barrios in a welterweight contest after he's been knocked out at junior welterweight by a lightweight.
As if that's a year mark for elitism at 147 pounds.
Keith Thurman wanted a pretty penny to face blue-chip prospect Jaron Ennis. Ennis' father and trainer Bozy recently revealed that one time wanted an 8-figure payday to face off against Boots. Thurman wanted $10 million to fight Boots. Come on, man. You don't make $10 million. Why would you want $10 million to fight Boots? I know, it's a high risk, low reward. But you never made $10 million fighting Manny Pacquiao and his Tolt YouTube channel In This Corner Boxing 24.
Keith Thurman's reported guarantee for the Manny Pacquiao title fight close to 3 years ago was just north of $2 million. Just a little over $2 million, not 10.
Manny Pacquiao himself was estimated to be getting $10 million up front. Keith, a little over 2.4. So when you go ahead and you ask for that kind of dollar amount up front, $10 million up front for Jaron Boots Ennis of all people, well, you don't ask for that because you're expecting to get it. You ask for that
It's a safety net.
to justify the risk you're taking. You want them to make it worth your while, but what you're asking for, well, you don't actually expect to get it, so what are you really doing?
Pricing yourself out, that's what you're doing.
Pretty obvious. We want to fight 2-3 times a year, and we don't like that inactivity for Boots. So I talked to Showtime Sports head Stefan Espinoza and told him we need to fight. We were supposed to be fighting in December or something like that. I told Espinoza that we want someone in the top 5. We're not going backwards. We're not going to 10 or 9 or anything like that. We want top 5, 6, or 7. Crawford is going to be fighting Evanesian. That's who we wanted to fight, but he turned us down. We've been asking for him. He was supposed to fight Virgil Ortiz one time, but Ortiz turned him down. That's what I heard.
I don't actually doubt that Jaron Boots Ennis and his father Bozy want that Crawford fight. I think they want the fight.
Yeah, they might. But Cameron Duncan and the people at Showtime, the Showtime platform where Jaron Boots Ennis boxes exclusively.
They're the ones that have to formulate the offer. They're the ones that have to bankroll the fight. So if your fighter is saying that he wants Terence Crawford, the onus is on you to formulate the guarantee. Pay for the fight because Terence Crawford is a network and promotional free agent.
Somebody's got to pay for the goddamn thing. The money's got to come from somewhere. And because Jaron Boots Ennis boxes exclusively on Showtime, he's not at liberty to go to a Black Prime and fight Terence Crawford there. No. He boxes exclusively on Showtime. So it's on Showtime to pay for the fight.
And I don't know what effort, if any, they put into doing that.
Unlikely. They were supposedly trying to negotiate the Crawford versus Spence fight, so I don't think the Crawford versus Boots fight was on their to-do list.
We wanted everyone in the top 5. We asked for all them guys.
So that's what we're waiting on. I don't know who Stefan Espinoza is going to get for us, but he's going to get somebody. We don't like waiting because Boots always stays in the gym. Jaron Boots Ennis, who unfortunately only boxed for a grand total of 4 minutes earlier this year against then unbeaten Castillo Clayton.
It was an impressive knockout, and I thought we'd get to see the guy box at least one more time before this year was out.
Ideally we would have, but it seems like we're not going to see Jaron Boots Ennis again until the first or second quarter of next year, making this year rather unproductive. For an unbeaten up-and-comer who's trying to get out there and make a name for himself, you can't have him boxing once a year and hope to build a buzz for this guy.
It's on Cameron Duncan and the people at Showtime and the Showtime platform where he boxes exclusively. It's up to them to make things happen, and they're not making things happen.
What the hell's the point in even being over there on the same side of the street with all those guys if you can't fight any of them?
Jaron Ennis is Spence's mandatory challenger by way of the IBF, and for some strange reason, the IBF has made no mention of ordering that fight.
It's not like they're not ordering other fights. They're ordering fights in other divisions for other fighters and other champions. Very recently, they ordered Shernika Johnson to take on Ellie Scotney as her mandatory challenger.
They stripped Joe Cordina of his red belt for not being able to satisfy his so soon after he won it. They decided to strip him because he was out injured.
Not Errol Spence. No orders for Errol Spence. No order for Jermel Charlo either. Jermel, who has a mandatory challenger in the queue in the form of Bakram Murtazaliev, who has been the mandatory challenger by way of the IBF since 2019. No orders for the PBC guys.
That's convenient.
Back to Queefy. I'm not at all surprised to hear that Queefy has decided to price himself out of a Jaron Boots Ennis fight, because you know what?
What?
If this guy really wanted to get out there and he wanted to make a splash and show everybody that he still got it, he wouldn't have waited as long as he did to do it. And he wouldn't have taken on Mario Barrios, a super lightweight who got knocked out at super lightweight by a lightweight who Keith decisioned at welterweight.
Mediocre!
It shouldn't have taken Keith Thurman a little over 2 years to rebound off the loss to Manny Pacquiao. It shouldn't have taken a little over 2 years to fight a guy like Mario Barrios. For fighting a guy like that, you could have scheduled a fight like that last year. You chose to sit out because you don't want to fight anybody.
Mediocre!
You're almost rewarding his mediocrity, allowing him to fight Errol Spence Jr., having done little more in the last 2 going on 3 years.
He decisioned Mario Barrios while he was coming off a loss? Get that man a title shot!
He has been named as the WBC's mandatory challenger to Errol Spence Jr.'s green belt, his WBC title, in spite of Errol having already 2 mandatories outstanding by way of both the IBF and the WBA.
So you tell me, if you're Jaron Boots Ennis and you can't even get a fight with any of these guys, what's the fucking point of being over there?
You box exclusively on the Showtime platform, so you can fight once a year?
That's the best they can do. That's the best they can do for you.
Keith Thurman ends up fighting Errol Spence Jr. in Errol's very next fight. They will have, in effect, screwed over not just Jaron Boots Ennis by way of the IBF, but a Montes Stanionis also by way of the WBA. They actually got him to step aside so that Errol could fight for the WBA title, only so that when he wins it, he ends up defending it against somebody else.
Keith Thurman demanding $10 million for a Jaron Boots Ennis fight is little more than a sophisticated duck.
You didn't get $10 million guaranteed when you fought Pacquiao. You're certainly not expecting to get that for Jaron Boots Ennis. You're just asking for something you know they can't give you, so you have an excuse to walk away.
I've been saying it for years. Keith Thurman doesn't want to fight anybody. He doesn't have it anymore.
He's just waiting to cash out. That's what he's been waiting for all this time, and very soon, he may yet get the chance.
Yeah, he might.
Because the powers that be rather put Errol in there with a faded Keith Thurman than an ambitious Jaron Boots Ennis.
You think this is the first time we've heard that Keith priced himself out of a fight?
It's not. Well over a year ago, about 2. Bo-Mac, Brian McIntyre, Terence Crawford's longtime trainer, he said the same thing.
The exact same thing. Same dollar amount, too. Apparently, Keith Thurman wanted $10 million for a Terence Crawford fight. Now, he wants $10 million for a Jaron Boots Ennis fight.
So do I believe what Bozie's saying? Absolutely I do. Meanwhile, Terence Crawford himself welcomes showdowns with Virgil Ortiz, Jaron Ennis, stating, "I'm the best fighter in the world." Them names never came up, said Crawford recently on his Instagram Live. I would have fought those names in a heartbeat.
In the case of Jaron Ennis, the 25-year-old hailing from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, has made it abundantly clear that he would jump at the opportunity to face Spence or Crawford.
I don't think Errol Spence Jr. is ever going to fight that guy. I don't think Errol Spence Jr. will ever share the ring with Jaron Boots Ennis. So the only guy Jaron Ennis stands a chance of sharing the ring with is Terence Crawford.
Here's the problem. According to Terence, Jaron Ennis' name never came up.
If Showtime were interested in doing that fight between Terence and Jaron, It would have had to, because they would have been the ones that had to pay for it. There's a lot of guys out there, a lot of fight fans, a lot of content creators. They don't want to understand.
You start talking about accountability, and their eyes start to glaze over. They don't understand that concept.
No such thing as a free lunch. Everything costs. This is a concept that goes right over their heads while they're demanding a fight like Crawford versus Ennis, which I'm not against, but I understand. In order for you to do this thing, somebody's got to pay for it.
And if Ennis is exclusively contracted to the Showtime platform and Crawford is a network and promotional free agent, then Showtime's got to pay for the fight if they want to fight.
Because Jaron Ennis ain't going to box off platform. They're not going to let him.
The exact same thing applies to Virgil Ortiz.
The exact same thing. If what Virgil Ortiz wants is a Terrence Crawford fight because he's not having any luck in the Spence department, it's up to Golden Boy Promotions to bankroll the show. It's up to Golden Boy Promotions to make Terrence Crawford an offer to do the fight on their side of things on the DAZN platform. It's up to them because he's a network and promotional free agent.
Crawford is, Virgil isn't.
You think Golden Boy Promotions would let Virgil Ortiz cross over to Black Prime to fight Terrence Crawford there?
No, of course not.
I'm telling you, there are some fight fans out there, self-satisfied ones, that take any narrative a content creator cooks up and just decide to run with it without any critical thinking skills, giving the narrative any thought that if these guys want to get Crawford in the ring, these guys that are exclusive to a network, exclusive to a platform, that platform has to pay for the fight.
Money doesn't grow on trees, you know.
Concept that's hard for some individuals to wrap their minds around as they watch box office fights for free by way of pirated streams via their little fire sticks.
You think these guys understand accountability? The majority of them aren't even the head of their households.
That's why for some individuals, these concepts are a bit hard to understand. That I myself am not against a Crawford versus Ennis fight or a Crawford versus Ortiz fight, but the money has to come from somewhere because I'm pretty sure none of these pugilists are going to fight on the cheap. None of them are going to go out there and fight for free. Somebody's got to pay for all of this.
I'm not optimistic when it comes to Crawford versus Spence talks picking up where they left off next year. And if they don't...
If the fight is dead, maybe Terrence does end up fighting one of these guys. The likeliest candidate to me, from where I'm sitting, is Virgil Ortiz. Because he boxes on the DAZN platform. Golden Boy Promotions, they need more champions in their stable. They need to get their fighters more opportunities. Zerto just faltered at the hands of Dimitri Bivol up there at light heavyweight. Maybe
Showtime didn't offer Terrence Crawford nothing for no Jaron Boots Ennis fight, but maybe Golden Boy Promotions can offer Crawford Virgil Ortiz.
sign Terrence Crawford to a 2-fight deal. Get him in there with Alexis Rocha as a build-up fight for an Ortiz fight. Get Ortiz somebody to fight. Then bill their fight as a box office fight on the DAZN platform.
Because you need the content and he needs the opponents.